Hello friends, this is Pradeep from Tech and Training Corporate Solutions with a new video on dynamic data and dynamic chart. Let's understand what exactly do I want to do in this video. In this, I have four data sets: Pradeep's data, Prashant's data, Shubhi's data, and Ambrish's data. Below that, I have a master data set. Now in this master data set, if I choose any employee or any person, it should get me the relevant data. So see, the moment I selected Shubhi, it got me Shubhi's data. If I change it to Ambrish, it gives me Ambrish's data. If I change it to Prashant, it gives me Prashant's data. Now here, this is called as dynamic data, where the data in the below data set automatically changes. In order to solve this problem, we should go into the dynamic data sheet. Before I start this series or lesson, let me tell you that there are certain functions that you need to understand. And those functions are index function, rows function, and columns function. Now, let us say that I want to get the data from Pradeep's data set for this cell. Here I'll type equal to index. Like I mentioned, I am going to use index function. Now in index function, the first option is for array. So I'm going to select the array. Now I select the entire data set, comma, I want row number. When I talk about row number, this within this data set, this is the first row. So let's say I put row number 1, comma, column number. So this is a second column, 1, 2. So I put the column number 2 and I close the bracket and see I get exactly what is available in this cell. Let's assume that I want to use this cell. So I type index function here equal to index, and here this is the array, comma, row number will be 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth row, comma, column number will be again 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's fourth column, and I close the bracket. It gets me the answer. What can you conclude? What is the use of index function? Index function, which fetches the data present at the intersection of row number and column number. So this is the row number 4, this is column number 4, and this is 357 that we have got here. So like I mentioned, index function is a function which fetches the data which is present at the intersection of given row number and column number from the selected data set. So here the selected data set is A9 to D13. So within this data set, here we have selected row number 4 and column number 4. So this was row number 4 and column number 4. So it fetched 357. Now, of course, this is a manual process. Manual process I mentioned because every time I cannot put row number and column number manually, because here I have limited data set and I've done only 2 examples. In actual data, I may have hundreds of rows and columns, and if I want to make that data dynamic, I cannot keep typing the row number and column number manually. But the question is, how do I get the row number and column number automatically? So here comes the need of rows function. Now see, I'm going to use equal to rows function because first of all, it wants me to select the rows. All right. So I select the rows function and I type this row. So answer is 1. If I select 3 cells, now the output is number 3. If I further change it to any other value, any other range, so it gives me 7. Now, how is this going to help me? Here, this is row number 1, this is row number 2, this is row number 3, this is row number 4 and 5. So I just need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this formula. So instead of this 1, I want to write a rows function to get me the value 1. For this cell, I need row number 2. For this cell, I need row number 3. So let's see how do we get it. I type equal to rows function, and here I'll just select this cell, colon, the same cell, I'll close the bracket. But here I have D18 colon D18. Normally what do? We select both the options, both the upper and lower limit of a range, and freeze both of them. But here I'm just going to freeze the upper range and I'll press enter. So here I've got 1, I drag it, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4 and 5. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I can, in this formula, I can, instead of typing 1, I can select this cell. Now see, enter, and now if I drag it down, I get this one. Now why didn't I get this properly is because I did not freeze this range. So let me freeze it, and then if I drag it, see how does it work. See, it has given me absolutely the same values that I have in this column. So this rows function, what does it do is it counts the number of cells selected, or to be precise, it counts the number of rows selected. Now I can drag it horizontally also and down also. See, it just counts row. It does not matter if you've selected different columns as well, it will still give you the number of rows which are selected. Similarly, if I talk about columns function, I type columns, and here again I'm going to select this colon, this closing bracket, and again I'm going to freeze the upper limit. Now see, like rows function, column function counts the number of columns selected. So see, if I select this is a column number 1 only, but if I drag it horizontally, you can see this is column number 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this range is for rows function, and this is the range for columns function. So people, here I have talked about index function, rows function and columns function. Now let's understand how can we use all these three functions to work so that we can get the desired result. So let's see how do we do this. I type equal to index function. I select Prashant's data. I freeze it, comma, I type rows function. I select this cell, colon, that cell, the same cell, closing bracket, and I freeze the upper limit, and here I freeze the now I'm writing for columns function. So this column, colon, the same cell, closing bracket twice, and freeze the upper limit of this columns function, and see, I drag it horizontally and I drag it vertically down. Right now, see, this we have done only for one data set, that is for Prashant's data set. But if I change it to Pradeep, it does not work. Now, since it does not work, the problem is the data source or the array that we have selected, that is only for Prashant's data. It is a static data source that I've selected. I need to make this data source dynamic. Now, in order to make this data source dynamic, I cannot select this data source. So there's one simple change in this formula that I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this data source with the name ranges. So what I'll do, I'll select this data and I'll name it as Pradeep. And I press enter. Then here I select this data source and I make it Prashant. And I press enter. Let me tell you that pressing enter after typing the name is mandatory. So here it is Shubhi, enter. And here it is Amrish, enter, enter. Now in this formula, what I'll do is I'll select this range and I select this Pradeep because I have named that Pradeep, okay, and I freeze that cell. Now I press enter and see, it just gives me this error. People, I was expecting a different thing to be done. But what exactly happens here is, although I have selected Pradeep, but this Pradeep cell, you can see that this cell reference has got word Pradeep. So it is treating that Pradeep as a word. It does not treat it as a name range. So in order to convert the given word into a name range, we will have to put this word or that cell in the function which is indirect. So when I put this in indirect function, now see, everything will work fine. So it is 0, I'll drag it horizontally, I'll drag it vertically down, and this is 0, so I do not need it, so I'll delete it. Now see, I change it to Prashant, the data changes. I change it to Shubhi, the data again changes, and so it happens with Ambrish. Now, I said in the beginning that this is a lesson which is going to be for dynamic data. So here is the data dynamic, and I'm going to create a dynamic chart. So I press Alt and F1 and see here. This is the data that I have, and here is the chart that I have. If I change this now with Prashant, see the data automatically changes. If I change it to Shubhi, the data automatically changes. And here we have the chart title. What we can do is I can type equal to this cell and press enter. So now what happens is whenever we change the data source, this also changes. So after doing all these things, now if I change any, if I select any other person, the chart changes as well as the data changes. This was the video to learn the dynamic data as well as dynamic chart. I hope you must have liked this video, and people, if you have any question, feedback, or any training requirement, you can always get in touch with us on the above mentioned email address, that is feedback@techtrainings.net, or you can also call us on our board line number, and we'll be happy to assist you. So here Pradeep signing off. Thank you very much for watching this video. Take care and bye-bye.